It began, as these things often do, not with a scream, but a whisper. Third-year medical student Leila Nasser had always been meticulous, quiet, and sharp. She rarely spoke unless she had something worth saying. So when she stopped in the middle of a long sterile hallway during her pediatrics rotation and quietly said to her roommate, "Something's not right with Dr. Halbridge," Maya knew to listen. Dr. Halbridge was a respected name, a published authority in pediatric oncology, and a man whose smile never quite reached his eyes. Leila had witnessed him cross a line. A hand resting too long on a student's back, a whispered comment during a procedure that made her skin crawl. She kept a journal, just in case, logging every incident, unsure if she was overreacting. But now, after an encounter with a crying second year who had rushed past her in tears, Leila had made a decision. She was going to report him. The complaint was filed on a Wednesday. Leila submitted it through the official Title IX channel, including anonymized quotes, dates, and names, with the promise of confidentiality. The administrator's smile was tight. "We take all complaints seriously," she was told. But Leila knew how these things worked. She wasn't naive. She knew the consequences could be severe, not for the administrator, but for her. By Friday, the whispers had started. A classmate asked her if she'd really gone after Halbridge. Another gave her a pitiful look. Her clinical assignments were suddenly shifted. And then, the real change. Dr. Halbridge passed her in the hallway, paused for a second too long, and said with a smile that didn't reach his eyes, "You're ambitious, Ms. Nasser. Let's hope you don't burn out." That night, she locked her journal in a drawer. Leila went missing the following Thursday. Maya came back to their dorm to find the room unusually silent. Her bed was made, phone left charging, badge still clipped to her coat hanging on the door. Nothing stolen, no sign of struggle. But Leila wasn't answering texts. Calls went straight to voicemail. At first, Maya assumed she'd gone somewhere. Overwhelmed maybe, or out for coffee. But when the hours ticked into a full day, and Leila didn't show up to her scheduled shift at the hospital, Maya panicked. She reported it to the school. The police were called. The response was procedural at best. "Adults are allowed to disappear," they said. But Maya knew Leila. She didn't run. It took Maya 3 days to work up the nerve to go through Leila's things. She told herself it was necessary. She opened Leila's drawer and found the journal, a flash drive taped to the inside cover, and a note scribbled hastily on the last page. "If anything happens to me, start here." Maya's hands trembled. The entries detailed months of observations, names, dates, and even photos snapped with her phone of text messages and late-night emails from students who had since transferred or dropped out. The flash drive held something else, audio recordings. Some were lectures. Others were secretly recorded conversations. But one folder stood out, encrypted and labeled for truth. It took hours and the help of a tech-savvy classmate to crack the encryption. Inside were 6 audio files. In one, a woman sobbed as she recounted being cornered in a supply closet. In another, Dr. Halbridge's voice was unmistakable, low and measured. "No one's going to believe you, you know. You're just another desperate student." One clip was silent for almost a full minute, then the sound of Leila's voice. "If this ends up somewhere, I didn't run. I was silenced." Maya sat in the dark, shaking, unable to move. Leila had been documenting a pattern of abuse that went back years, and no one had listened. Maya couldn't sleep. She began cross-referencing the names in Leila's journal. At least 4 students had left the program suddenly over the past 2 years. 2 had medical withdrawals. 1 transferred mid-year with no explanation. Maya contacted them, posing as someone working on a study about burnout. 1 called her back. Her name was Jamie. Her voice shook. "I know why you're calling. Is this about Leila?" That was when Maya knew Leila wasn't paranoid. She had been targeted. And now Maya might be too. It happened on a Sunday. Maya returned to her apartment to find her laptop open. She was certain she'd shut it before leaving. The screen displayed a single message in a text document. "Some lessons aren't worth learning the hard way. Drop it." There were no signs of forced entry. Nothing was taken. But the message was clear. She was being watched. Still, Maya wasn't Leila. She wouldn't back down. She backed up the files onto 3 drives and mailed 2 of them to people she trusted. The third, she kept on her at all times. Maya reached out to a local journalist known for exposing medical corruption. He listened, brows furrowed, nodding through the recordings and journal entries. "If this is real, it's explosive," he whispered. A week later, he ghosted her. His number was disconnected. The station ran a human interest story instead, about a retired nurse volunteering at an animal shelter. Maya checked the journalist's LinkedIn. It now listed him as on sabbatical. The silence was suffocating. It seemed Leila's story was too dangerous to tell. It was Leila's scarf that finally surfaced. Found near a storm drain behind the hospital, wrapped around a file folder half-soaked in rain. Inside were more documents. Internal emails, reprimands that had been erased from faculty files, and handwritten notes from a hospital ethics board hearing that had never been made public. At the bottom, one line stood out, scrawled in red, "We protect our own." Maya knew then that Leila had gotten closer to something big, something systemic. Eventually, the recordings reached the hands of a civil rights lawyer who went public. Lawsuits were filed. Names were named. But Dr. Halbridge had already quietly resigned, citing personal health reasons. No criminal charges were brought. The hospital released a statement denying wrongdoing. But the whispers didn't stop. Parents began asking questions. Donations dropped. And students, those who had once been afraid, started coming forward. Leila was never found. No body, no final message. But her words lived on. Her journal was published anonymously online, read by thousands. One professor resigned. Another was put on administrative leave. And students who had felt powerless finally had a name to rally behind. Leila Nasser. She became a quiet symbol, not of martyrdom, but of resistance. A seed planted in sterile soil. Pain doesn't always scream. Sometimes it whispers from beneath locked drawers and encrypted files. Sometimes it lives in the silence of empty dorm rooms and unasked questions. Leila didn't just vanish. She was erased. But her story, once uncovered, couldn't be buried again. And every time a student dares to speak, every time an institution is held accountable, her voice echoes. In a world that often punishes truth-tellers, her story is a warning and a plea: listen, believe, protect. Subscribe to the White Coat Crimes for more shocking true stories, medical crimes, medical mysteries, and the dark side of healthcare you were never meant to see.